understand that other sound or instrument, etc.
Yeah.
So that's in essence
just rolling. Yeah, cool. Okay.
Let's roll.
Let's roll. I mean, again, I'm happy just to continue the conversation, which is basically that. I mean, I'm curious. Well, the first thing that I'm actually interested about with the M450 or the M470 or the M370 was your inspiration primarily sound or primarily kind of engineering design or a mixture of both? Where did that come from?
Absolute priority was sound, because the original idea came up during tunings of concert grand pianos. I was pretty much disappointed when the more I learned about concert grand pianos. You see how the process is in Germany. You are an apprentice at a company, like I was at Schimmel, and then you meet the Schimmel instruments essentially only. And only after the apprenticeship, when I began tuning pianos, and after I established my first company with focusing on restoration of old pianos, which was the main battleground where I educated myself in piano building, you could say. Then I more and more got also because of experience, you need time to be able to do concert tuning. I got more and more to the concert pianos, and I was expecting I had high expectations, because at Schimmel they told me, these Steinway, D model, and I mean, all those top brands would be the top of the mountain, the top of it all. And I was pretty much disappointed about these tops. I said, it's halfway up the mountain. Can't be the top. Well, that's one thing. And in particular, I was disappointed or disagreed with the bass register of all the pianos. None of the concert grand pianos have a beautiful bass. None. Simply none, in my as I hear. And so I understood, the more I understood about piano building, about the implications, about the interactions of all the parts, I understood that a beautiful sound in the tone in the bass register needs long, thin strings. You can't put, of course, you can put thinner strings on the traditional grand, which will make it way too soft sounding. It shouldn't be. So you need a certain mass for volume and a concert type sound. And so you have to go much bigger. And much bigger as a grand piano makes no sense, not much sense, very little sense. Because if you're thinking like consequently functional, like I did always in regard of piano building in particular, the sound should be beaming into the public and not to the floor and to the ceiling. You don't put a loudspeaker on the back somehow. The other point is, if you do a huge, long grand piano, the action slips deeper and deeper and deeper into the piano, and you get longer and longer and longer keys. And if you now compare, for example, the B model with the D model, you already feel quite a difference. The D model is close to unpleasant to play by means of the mass of the keys. If you imagine way longer keys, it becomes too slow and anyway. Also mechanically, so to say, not advisable. And in particular, if you want to really make it like we do with the 450, a real concert piano, it becomes immovable. And you have to accept it like you accept church organs. Everybody accepts that church organs are installed in concert halls, churches, etc. So that was my approach, but the sound was the absolute priority, and then I had to think how to engineer it, because, of course, it couldn't be a traditional cast iron frame.
No.
That itself would have been quite immovable, so I said, no, that makes no sense. And digging into all the aspects of statics of piano, I understood that if size and proportions are no problem, no priority, then you can easily make an extremely solid outer frame instead of an inner support frame. As soon as you do an outer frame, you can easily and advisedly use steel instead of cast iron. And you can have variations, countless variations. It makes it, it opens the possibility to do pianos on demand for certain places. No traditional manufacturer can build you a piano. Let's say you have a ceiling height of 2.90 meters, and you have not so big space, but you would love a big sound in that space. So you say, please, Klavins, make us a 2.90 meters tall vertical concert piano. We can do that. It's not a problem. Slight modifications to the existing 450 or 370, etc. And it opens totally new possibilities. Also, this was one consideration to change the engineering approach as such to the piano, not by skipping the cast iron frame. Cast iron frames, if you want to make an individual frame, it's the frame itself would be minimum €100,000 to model it, to do one model until you get from the drawing to a workable final product of cast iron frame. You have to do at least 3-4 like improvements of the mold and the model. And so anyway, it's extremely expensive and hardly practicable. While any size of piano, be it this tiny, beautiful, handy size, or the big ones, can be made by utilizing steel. So that's one thing. The other, then there's other aspects. For example, I favor parallel stringing for the simple reason that the transition from the bass to the middle register is generally more balanced at the parallel strung instrument compared to cross stringing. And it opens other practical things like the tone modulation because it's a straight plane where you can easily attach a tone modulation device, like material that you place between hammers and strings, and you can create 100 different sounds, or 200, 500, however many you want. So there's a lot of advantages to this approach. And the idea is, once you open the Pandora's box of piano innovation, it's countless possibilities, actually. You can go on and on and on and on. We'll see, for example, we plan to do new prototypes of 5 new piano models next year, and which different from the ones we already make, which will all be in their way different from, also by means of sound, or in particular by means of sound. So that's my approach generally, and has been from the onset: sound and variation, expanding the sound quality and the sound character, getting, in particular with the small pianos, into more beauty of tone and not loudness. With the big ones, loud and beautiful in tone. Because as you surely have experienced if you have a classical piano, in particular small pianos, but let's put them aside, that you imagine a concert grand. If you hit it forte fortissimo furioso in the bass in particular, it becomes totally blurred. You can't make out the tone. On the 450, you can hit as hard as ever you can, and you still have a beautiful tone in the bass register. And that's due to the length and the thickness, very thin strings. There's no other way to get there. So all of these aspects were considerations why I approached this subject as I did.
I have about 100 questions, but I'll take one at a time. Okay. I think the first one is, you mentioned parallel stringing, and you mentioned the idea of a moderator or putting material in between the strings, which are things which I associate with late 18th and early 19th century Viennese pianos primarily. Was that, did that ever along the process occur to you that you were actually using techniques in a different way that had been used a couple of centuries ago?
Yeah, in general, let's say, as much as I knew about the history of piano making, and I went through the history of piano making naturally
Yeah.
during school and education, and I was also naturally interested in where the differences lay and how they are. And as I mentioned briefly, I was studying piano building on my own mainly after the apprenticeship by rebuilding old pianos. So the old pianos, let's say old means from about 1870, 80 onward,
Yeah.
which are typically pianos already close or at the technical standards of the modern piano, but still had a lot of differences by means of soundboard design, scaling, and all kinds of aspects that made them sound, and mechanics, of course, that created more variety of sound. And my main idea, as I mentioned with the big piano, was improve the concert piano by inventing the vertical concert grand, as I call them. And the second was expanding the tonal possibilities, and also when I, for example, was confronted with the fact that Bach originally wrote for harpsichord. Okay, harpsichord is a beautiful instrument. I myself can't stand to listen to it for too long. But having a piano more in direction of the, let's say, early pianos at Beethoven's time, and essentially, let's say, una corda, which as we called our small pianos, una corda was the first piano. It was actually also returning to the roots of the piano building, actually, just refining the technology, the engineering, etc., etc. So by this means, it's not a new idea; it's the oldest of ideas regarding the one-string per note. And so it was a mix, actually, considering the sounds of the older days, early piano days, older days, and also I got to restore some Viennese pianos during the time when I was focusing restoration, and some hammer pianos, some those square, fancy Tafelklavier, yeah. So I found this actually those sounds very charming. I mean, totally different from any modern piano, but appealing in a way. And so all of that together led me to understand that there's way more in the world of piano sounds than today's pianos offer. The industry piano, industrially made pianos.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating journey. I mean, every new piano is highly, highly, highly thrilling, so to say, to build it and to imagine sound. And then you get to eventually to the point where you tune it, you get a first impression. Eventually, when it's totally tuned, only then you can really get the idea of what your creation actually offers. And it's totally fascinating, of course, as an approach. Much more interesting, of course, than repeating things over and over again that you've done for decades, for whatever.
But it's actually, in a way, it's an interesting parallel to what I think of as the state of classical music right now, which is that actually we are essentially putting the canon into concrete and saying this is the canon and this is how things need to be for all time. And as a musician, I kind of instinctively react pretty strongly against that. And I get a similar feeling that at a certain moment, perhaps you were told, no, this is how pianos need to be, and you instinctively reacted against that.
Yeah, in a way. I also, of course, I was confronted with the fact that the entire perception of pianists, professors, etc., of piano and the world of pianos was pretty much programmed and set to think that the existing pianos is the pinnacle of what it's the final stage of the super development that took place more than 100 years ago now.
Yeah.
And as difficult as it is to overcome perceptions that have grown through 100 years, I think in piano building and understanding that there is legit alternatives, not just fancy experiments. No. It's one thing. The same a little bit applies also for music. The professors telling the students, Beethoven sonata, so you got to play it this way. Bach, you got to play it this way. When students become professors, they teach their students the same, you know, all little deviations, of course, and freedom of interpretation until a certain limit, but those limits often very close. And school after school after school repeats this. So where's the breakout, or where's the chance to break out of the concept? Unless some teachers would begin to start, or today, I mean, we have some examples, but they're too few. I think that the world of music should be also cracked open in a way towards innovation, towards more freedom of interpretation, etc. Would make it much more interesting.
Yeah.
If I listen to Chopin Ballada number 3, which I love very much, for example, or number 4, or number whatever. But I know every note that will come up.
Yeah.
There's so little surprise in that interpretation. I would be much more happy if there's some announcement would say, you have never heard the ballada like this. Cowards, listen to it.
Well, so is there repertoire which we would like to hear more of on your instruments, whether that be the Vertical Concert Grand or the Una Corda models? In that, my first experience hearing your instruments was, like probably many people, through Niels Fram's playing and through his music. And when I recorded my project in Berlin, I found the best way that I could get the sound out of the piano that I wanted was through my own music, through my own compositions, my own improvisations, my own arrangements. Which is to say, I wasn't playing the third Chopin Ballade. But I'm wondering whether, I don't know, is that even something that we need to be worried about? Or is it the fact of having a kind of new sort of piano, is that actually then almost like a call for new kinds of music?
Yeah. My main hope, also my main interest, lies in improvisational music, actually. I admire all pianists who have, and I know a few, and Niels is one of the total masters of improvisation, in my opinion. Yeah. Not only improvisation, also composition. And I think new possibilities of sound invite writing new music. Yeah. So in a way, it goes along with my interest in hearing, listening to new music. On the one hand. On the other hand, I'm really highly interested in listening to pianists who understand the 450 and would play the Chopin balladas on the 450 because it opens objectively much more ways of interpretation, for example, by means of the extended dynamics. Yeah. If you hit the 450 max fortissimo furioso, for example, you get a much more powerful and blooming sound out of the piano. So the entire scope of dynamic range from the pianissimo to the loudest sound is way wider. Of course, that's the typical, let's say, means of interpretation. One means of interpretation is dynamics. So objectively opens more possibilities, invites to more experimentation also in this regard, more dynamic range. So it would be much more interesting. At least I'm much more interested to hear the Chopin Ballada on the 450 than on any other piano. Sure. And since I have the sound of a really clear and powerful bass in my ear, since I have created those pianos, I cannot really enjoy any concert grand piano unless the music is so fascinating that the music carries you away, not the sound of the piano. But it should favorably be both the sound of the piano and the adequate music. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, just last quickly, because we have so much material, but I'm just curious about the new prototypes. What are you working on now? Or is that a trade secret?
Top secret. What shall we mention? We can mention.
There are going to be interesting things for people who like grand piano actions.
Okay.
There will be interesting things for people who like lightweight materials.
Okay.
and there's a few extremely radical pianos that are extensions of David's designs that have never been done before, and there's nothing like it, and it's just as groundbreaking as his previous stuff. And it's really, you could sit in a room by yourself for a month and not come up with this. It's going to be great.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think we can, because you mentioned the horizontal, the grand piano action is only achievable by making a grand piano. See, and I don't have any objections against horizontal instruments. Of course not. I just say the max concert piano cannot be a horizontal one. It should be the vertical.
Yeah.
But a beautiful sounding una corda like the M189, which you have played and heard, put into a grand piano shape for the sake of having a grand piano action. You know that the world is full of pianists, and naturally they're maximally used to grand piano touch. And to do them a favor, and ourselves, we decided that it's by the time to design an una corda grand piano.
Okay.
And more you will hear when it's done. I will not promise anything, and do not forecast anything, just I believe it will be great.
Wow. Well, that's very exciting news for me and all of my pianist friends who only want to play on grand piano actions.
Yeah, it's legit. I don't criticize them. Although I object to one statement. Pianists used to say grand piano action is faster. That's not true. Our piano actions are as fast as a grand piano, but you need more work. You need to lift your fingers higher, and if you're capable of doing that, then you can. Our piano actions are fast as fast can be. You never can outplay them. I've had the fastest pianists playing the pianos, and maybe Lubomir Melnik, who claims he's the fastest pianist on the planet. And I mean, he's provided proof, and he's a big fan of our pianos, and he says this is the fastest action he has ever played.
Yeah.
Small una corda action.
Yeah, wow.
So, I mean, regarding speed, it's not a problem, but expression, tonal expression, of course, you can do different things with the grand piano action compared to the vertical. I totally admit to it.
Yeah.
That's why we'll build it.
Very interesting. Fantastic. I don't want to overstay my welcome. I think Lauris has more than enough to edit. I really wanted like 2 minutes, but we have more than half an hour, I think.
It's like a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I also love to talk about it because I hope that all kinds of these messages that go towards innovation, towards expanding, towards opening up to more possibilities, I hope they fall on fertile ground somewhere, maybe. And I want to utilize every chance to spread the general idea to make it happen. So I'm grateful that you came. And
no, I support your project 1,000%. I really, I mean, I don't have mixes that I can send you yet, but I've heard some first mixes, and honestly, the sound is just overwhelming.
I can't wait to hear them. And same goes for Lawrence, I'm sure.
Sorry.
So please, let us be the first ones you share once you are ready to share.
Of course.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Anthony.
Not a big pleasure. Thanks.